I go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the workshop of March 8th, 2022. Val, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Penny?
Here.
Commissioner Curry?
Here.
Commissioner Danio?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson? Mayor Villa?
Here. We'll jump to number 2, amending the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 annual operating and capital budget resolution discussion. Amending that capital budget. Mr. Forte?
We're going to kind of talk about everything all at one time. So you've got the capital projects list that we talked about at our last work session. We've got the budget amendment, and we have the piggybacking the contract with ZHA. And just so that you're aware, in the audience is Andy Brooks with ZHA. I worked with Andy and ZHA when I was in Seminole County. They did a project for the jail, and they did some other projects through the facilities department. Antoine was in the engineering department, so he really didn't interact so much with ZHA. But Andy's here in case you have any questions specifically about what role they're going to play and about any of the projects. So what we did is we assembled the projects onto this list that's in your agenda packets that we have it broken out into what we're going to assign and work with the consultant on, and what projects that we would keep in-house in case, that we have the ability to do in-house. We don't have to ship them out. So I don't know if you want to go through these individually and talk about them, if you have any concerns. Now, we've pretty much maximized the money that's available. If you remember at the last workshop, we didn't quite have it all budgeted out, but we advanced the 5-year plan to include more projects in each of the different categories and the enterprise funds. So it's all on there. Val, do you have the ability to make that a little bigger? You might be able to hit that plus arrow at the top or something. There you go. Good. Okay, so, Mayor, I don't know if you want to go through these things individually, just as a reminder.
Yes, please. Let's go through them. And some of them can be pretty quick.
Yeah, so the first 2 items, the Public Works building, and that's going to be in a couple of different areas because it's going to be funded out of some of the different enterprise funds, and that's the building that's going to be constructed over at the Public Works facility. And as a result of that, we're going to be moving some of the Public Works operations over to the current fire station, but that'll happen after we construct the new fire station. And part of the new fire station, we've kind of determined that location will more than likely be on the north side of the existing station in front of the Boys and Girls Club. Now, we might have to do a little bit of tweaking of the available land at the Boys and Girls Club for where it's going to sit and make sure it can be positioned properly for the engine to potentially come in off of 10th Street and with a drive-through bay and exit out onto Daytona Avenue. The bulkheads, that particular bulkhead is, you've got the Sunrise Park, the south side of North Sunrise Park is that particular one.
So right now we're doing the northern.
Right now we're doing the north side, correct.
Also, too, with the fire station, what kind of time frame are we looking at to build that and it be finished? Do we have any idea?
I don't, but once this is approved, we're going to have an initial meeting with Andy Brooks and his team, run through all these things, and we'll get an idea.
Okay.
I would look to say probably 2 years out by the time we go through, engineering, design. Probably be less, but I would anticipate on the far end 2 years.
So Joe, it says priority per fund. Does that mean that's the order they're going to be built, or?
Where do you see priority per fund?
Almost the last column, or is that the
through 8.
order that we're picking these things off, or?
The second to last column.
Oh,
It's just numbered.
that's Public Works priorities.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to figure out that. I mean, we're going to figure out how we can get these things done. That right there is just a numerical order. I mean a numerical running. It's not really a priority order.
Okay.
So when we talk with the consultant, we'll figure out what the priorities are, how we're going to get them done, the timing of everything, the cost, the materials. We may come back and our estimates may be low, and we may have to come back and go, all right, we're going to have to drop this project off because we may not be able to fund it. So we'll do as much as we can with whatever we have.
And it looks like we're only putting 4 of these on the consultant. I thought we were going to dump them all on the consultant, get them all done.
We got
There's
several
a
more
lot
pages
more.
to go.
Okay,
This
okay.
is just the general fund. So when you look at some of the ones that say in-house, these are the ones that Steve is already working on. For example, the bulkhead at Sunrise Park North, so he's already got that system down, so we'll just go ahead and have him continue to
Okay.
do that. The same thing with demolishing the bridge over across Centennial Park. I don't need a consultant to take a wood bridge out of the park, so those are things that we can handle in-house. And then the last item on there is, and this is one we're probably going to need to talk about, not necessarily tonight, but sometime in the very near future, is improvements to Sunrise Park. We're talking about, pavilions and pavilions and picnic tables, grass, landscaping, irrigation, restrooms, whatever you might have in mind. There's $650,000 that we're allocating for that project. So we may need to, I may go out with each of you individually and take a walk around the park and get your thoughts to see what it is that you want to do, and then we'll incorporate that into the capital project. Any other questions on the general fund?
No, sir.
Okay.
Joe, one second. Does the bulkhead include the railing along the bulkhead?
I don't, yeah.
Because it looks pretty rotten.
Is that the wooden rail?
Yeah,
Just
the wooden
to clarify, over at Sunrise Park, we're talking about 240 feet of the seawall, so that's going to take it to where the gazebo is right now. And that would be the same style as what we're doing on the north side, and we'd be replacing that railing. There's an additional, 300 feet that it goes down, but it's not nearly as in bad shape. So this is the more important section.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't do the rest of it. So the easternmost part,
It's doing the easternmost part. It's doing the pier to where the gazebo goes over the water. It's doing that section. The section that's further west along the seawall going towards the land where the nature trail used to be, that would be holding off with, it doesn't have as much damage.
okay. Is that something that in the future will have to be done, in
Yes,
5 years, 10 years, 100 years?
Yes.
Which one?
One of them.
Yeah, well, it depends on the section. We have just west of where the pavilion sits is directly hit by the water there, so that has, a lot, that'll need to be worked on sooner. As you get over towards where the bridge is, there's a good amount of grass and rock and things like that that are sitting there that's protecting the water from hitting the seawall. So that area is in a little bit better shape.
So we need to keep an eye on this budgeting-wise in the future, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
The reason I ask is because we do have funds available now to potentially, maybe we put towards it, or we have to start budgeting long-term towards it. I just don't want it to sneak up on us again. A year or two ago, really 2 years ago, when this came up, we had no way to really fund what we're doing now, and praise God that we're able to
Actually,
now.
Came up 6 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
the storms is what prompted all this.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
But to the mayor's point, if we know that has to be done, do we have like a ballpark estimate of what, can we get a better price if we do all of it at one time?
We get somewhat of a better price because mobilization, we'd save some money there, but it would be a significantly, bigger project. We'd have to go back on design and have that done, and what we're looking at is,
You'd be trading off another project for it, and if it doesn't have to be done now, and not that I'm one to kick the can down the road, which is why we're doing all this, but I don't think it's a priority that you have other priorities that are more important.
Got you.
yeah, I agree, and it's a long section, it's 340 feet.
340 feet, and how long is this section that we're looking at replacing?
240.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Val, if you go to the next page. So this is under the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund. So the first item is replacing the sewer force main from under the canal to the elevated crossing with a double-lined pipe. This is the pipe that we've had two incidences in my career here. The most recent one was a lightning strike. There was a lightning strike over there that went through and through, and we had a spill issue that was over there. So we need to get that one done. The softener and shaft replacement upgrades, these are to the lime silo. Upgrade and replace the control panel for the transfer pumps as part of the clear well. You know, these are things that the plant operators have prioritized based on their 5-year capital projections. Rehabbing the sand filters, that's one that we can do in-house. Sewer manhole evaluation and rehabilitation. Installing 25 sampling stations within the city. That's water sampling stations.
What is a water sampling station, automatic?
The part of our permits with FDEP, we're required to sample water, to test the water in certain locations. What this does is allows us, the automatic collects the sample, all we have to do is pick it up. Right now, sometimes we run into issues, the way it's collected, it's not uniform, the way we collect them. So this one gives us a chance to make it uniform on the 25 to pick up the samples, and they're all picked up or collected by the machine.
Interesting. Thank you.
Replacing the generator over at the plant.
Only 30 years old.
We probably bought it at a Stark, used.
Used, yeah, it was used.
Yes, we got it.
And
at a
hasn't
Stark.
that been in the budget multiple times to replace that generator?
I don't know, we've replaced other generators. We've replaced the
Okay.
one out front here, so I don't,
One was expired.
yeah.
Okay.
Rehabbing the largest lift stations in the city. Lift station number 4,
Yeah.
so that's the one that covers the quadrant. The-
Yes.
Right.
That's the biggest,
Right.
the biggest pumps.
And these are some of the ones that we added after our last discussion to make sure we can use up the money that
Yeah,
are available.
and I meant to ask you this earlier, but when we're looking at the lime silo, the second one on here, so I know we have a item later tonight about the sludge.
That's sludge hauling.
Right, but it's in regards to not having that shaft fixed, correct, Antoine? So, were we gonna have to pay more to fix that?
No, there is there is a softener where you add lime to the water, and then there is another tank that collects that wastewater out of the treatment, and we thicken it and send it to our wastewater. So the one we're working on today is the thickener, the tank. This one is the softener at the plant where the water runs through it and
Okay, so two different things.
two different things, yes.
Okay, so this would have had to be replaced anyways?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Implement all of the improvements identified by SB 64 to report climate. I can't read that. To report.
To report to eliminate,
Any and all discharge. So this is where we're discharging effluent into the river. Thank you. Oh, good, small version. This is where we're discharging effluent into the river, and we've got to come out of the river completely at some point. So we do have a relationship with Ormond Beach for some of our reclaim to be distributed up there, but that doesn't take it all out. So going through this process will get us into compliance to eliminate all of the discharge.
by the way, that's turned on now, right, between Orman and us?
I don't think it's completely turned on yet.
The work is done. Our work is not an issue, it's not the city. they're still trying to figure out, Ormond is trying to figure out what valves they need to turn off and turn on so they can get it to the right places.
Okay, so we're
So-
not giving it to them yet?
Yeah, no, we're not discharging it right now.
Okay.
We're not sending them any reclaimed water.
Okay.
Yet.
Yet.
But hopefully soon.
Good, good.
Okay, and then there are several water mains throughout the city that need to be replaced. I don't know if you recall, about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I had a piece of a water main that was in my office that was in pretty bad shape, just to kind of show you an idea of what we have. Most everything on the east side of Ridgewood, I think, has already been replaced, so we'll start to work on some of those mains that are on the west side of Ridgewood.
Good, good.
And
Questions
under-
on this?
On the stormwater, moving forward with the Mirage Pond project is on there, installing the duck bills. Again, we think that's going to help reduce the localized flooding. It's one of the, I'd say probably one of the easier solutions that we could implement to reduce some of the flooding, especially on Riverside Drive, and then hopefully that'll reduce some of the flooding in the community where we're getting that backflow of water from the river, especially when it's high tide. And then
When we installed the duck bills before, didn't we get grants for them?
we tried to get a local mitigation strategy grant, and what we had projected to be the cost of that was well underestimated. But the problem with going through an LMS grant is you have to be able to show the money that it's going to cost to implement something, that there's going to be a return on that investment close to what the cost of it is. And we just can't prove that because we don't have the property damage. So if I say, just as a round number, I'm going to do $500,000 worth of improvements, I need to show $500,000 return on investment for property that's not going to be damaged.
Wow, interesting.
And we just don't have it.
Okay,
You know, we have localized flooding that for the most part remains in the street or in the yard and doesn't really do property, home structure damage. Maybe citywide, there might be 7 or 9 properties that will get some water damage on the worst-case scenarios, but they haven't met the FEMA repetitive flood loss criteria. So
well, that answers my question.
we won't score
So we
high
can't
enough on
get-
that LMS
Okay.
to earn the money.
But it's something that needs to be done because the flooding is still an issue, so.
Yeah, so this is the best thing we can do for localized flooding. Okay, Val, I can scroll down a little bit. And then under, I was going to say, this is the solid waste. So what we're looking at, I see it now. So we're looking at resurfacing and rehabilitating some of the city streets. Again, we've already got monies that we set aside each year between the gas tax and the monies that were already taken out of the solid waste fund, but this will do a little bit more. We have more
So
problems.
for clarification, this is additional to what we do every year? Okay, perfect.
So we have more problems actually with sidewalks than we do with road paving. The roads aren't great, but we're getting into a pretty good position on the roads. It's the sidewalks that we're really having a bigger issue with because they're trip hazards and they're substandard. So we're trying to do an evaluation and get some of those changed out.
And just last week, a constituent on Flomish reached out to complain about the Flomish sidewalks. So it's nice to say, hey, there's a plan in place now.
Yeah, but, again, Mary, you and I talked about this. Antoine and I looked at that sidewalk a couple of years ago through one of the TPO strategies, and because that sidewalk is narrow and it's right up against the street, it's right up against the edge of pavement. In order to fix that, we need to purchase property in order to expand the right-of-way to widen that. And then there was a matter of it crossing one side of the road to the other, and it became not feasible, actually. So, in fact, I think what we concluded was people that would come down Walker, we would actually send them over to 15th Street, and they would come down 15th Street. So I'm not even sure if the kids are walking down Flomish anymore.
Being that we're in a workshop and just throwing out a crazy idea that I probably should have talked to you about otherwise, but would it be at all feasible to cover the canal on the south side of Flomish? I believe it starts probably around Birmingham and runs to the east.
I couldn't
It's a
tell you
small-
if it's feasible. I don't know.
Okay.
You're talking about putting a culvert pipe in there and covering it
Because
over.
half of Flomish is already that way. If you go west of
East
not Anniston, probably Selma. Probably starts at about Selma, the ditch.
is covered, it's covered west, it's covered east.
It's covered west.
It's covered west.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have to be evaluated.
Yeah. Okay. That's
You're
something
thinking
that
about
we'll talk
covering it
about
for the
later.
sake of putting a sidewalk over?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of traffic with kids there. I drive it 10 times a day. I live off of Flomish. There's always a lot of kids on Flomish because of the schools.
Again, more broken sidewalks in different areas of the city that we're going to try to address. While we're on sidewalks, I'll just mention Antoine and I are meeting with FPL tomorrow to take a look at the possibility of putting decorative lighting over the sidewalk on Riverside Drive, possibly, at least initially, from 14th Street south to Marina Grande, just to see. There are some power lines that cross over to the east side of Riverside Drive, so we'll meet with them out there and see if that's something that we can do. You know, it's gonna require a conduit underground, and I don't know what that effort's gonna be, but when we're talking about the LPGA improvements, depending upon the cost of this, you might want to divert money from Sunrise Park to this project or whatever have you. So we'll get a better idea of that after our meeting tomorrow.
Great.
Some of those power going over Riverside Drive appear to be homeowners' extension cords.
No, the ones that go overhead are legitimate.
No, look, real close at them. They're extension cords.
They shouldn't be.
You'll see.
Rick!
You'll see it.
That's it on the projects. The next item is actually the budget amendment that you're looking at. So with those projects being in place, now's the time to talk about if you want to see anything added or removed or tweaked.
The only question, and I think you were going to get clarification, is I know that we don't have some of the positions on there because those would be ongoing budget expenses.
Right.
But what about like consultant, for instance? I know that that's a limited time. Are we going to pay that out of this?
Yeah, the consultant fees will come out of this cost. What you're referring to, Mayor, we talked about some positions in the city, purchasing agent. We have 2 temporary full-time people for the Public Works Department because we don't have the inmates. We converted the code enforcement assistant to a full-time position. And the other one that we didn't finalize was the option of looking into a lobbyist to see if a lobbyist could help us acquire some state and federal monies. So we didn't include that in anything, and that'll come up.
Because
It's not anything that we would take out of these monies.
Yeah.
Because this is
this is
one-time
one-time
capital
money.
expenses.
Yeah, money.
Stella Grenay, Finance Director. The purchasing position, we're reallocating something that's been in the budget for several years. It was a grant writer position that was in finance. So that is already in the budget, but it's just, changing the position to be a purchasing agent. The
The part-time to full-time?
the building department code enforcement person, we will need to do some budget amendment for that, but there are sufficient extra revenues within the building department to pay for that change.
We've actually been getting monies through liens and
More
lien
permanent.
settlements out, so.
And then the
We had the-
positions for Public Works?
The 2 positions, the temporary full-time positions from Public Works will be partially funded from the monies left over from the inmate crew that we pay for. And the last item is the custodial trash collector position.
Which right now we have, and that'll be a general fund position. We have, if we want to take it from there, reserves already budgeted, a contingency already budgeted that we could move the money for the rest of this fiscal year from to fund that.
Are we actively pursuing a person for that, or?
Diane is still working on the job description and where we're going to locate that position, who that person's going to report to, and then we're going to get that out. And the more I drive around
Or we need it?
and see, the more it's needed. And
Wait
the
till next
more-
week after this week.
Yeah, and the more, when we get that position filled, I want to publicize it
Yeah.
as what it is. I mean, I was in Virginia over the weekend, and the trash there is just as bad. So
Yeah.
it's not just our city, but maybe we could make our city the cleanest.
Right,
Yeah.
we don't have any control of Virginia, we have control in Holyoke.
Some.
Some, yeah.
So that still leaves us with the need to, if the commission wants to go ahead and hire on a consultant, I gave you the figures of what that would be, I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of $30,000 a year, in the hopes that that lobbyist, did I say consultant?
Yeah.
You meant lobbyists.
Lobbyist,
They go by both names.
yeah, would be able to secure some funding for us for project. They may be monies that we could attribute to some of these projects, because they are budgeted and funded. They may be able to get some match money for us, or they may be new projects coming down the road. But, I compare us to some of the projects that South Daytona's received, and they've seemed to have benefited, not a great deal. Some years it might be a $100,000 project, another year it might be a $500,000 project. But we've never gone the route of a lobbyist, and maybe it's time that we look to see if we can do that.
And there is also enough contingency funds if we wanted to move that to fund the lobbyist too.
Okay.
Joe, even if he only gets 100, if you spent 30,
Yeah,
not a bad move.
right.
Well, the lobbyist functions off of a base pay and then actual costs. So if he does any traveling or writing for something, he'll add those costs on to his retainer. But typically what they'll do is they'll stay in touch with the city, they'll see what projects we have, they'll see what monies are coming available. And this next coming year might be advantageous for us with the makeup of the legislature, the state legislature, so it might be a good time for us to bring somebody on board where we can strike and hopefully gain some funds.
I can't underscore that enough, yeah. We'll have a very powerful ally up there as our representative. All right, well, that answers all my questions on it. Are there any further questions from the commission?
So no changes to what we have on the capital items. I want to, if there are nothing else for that, it's an opportunity that if you want to ask Andy Brooks anything with regard to the relationship that the city will have with ZHA, and what they're going to do is they're going to serve as the owner's rep and project manager on these projects. And what we'll do is we'll meet with them and we'll talk about what we have and develop a strategy and a time frame and an estimated cost. And then we'll basically turn it over to them to handle, and they'll report back to the staff here on a regular basis. They may even set up an office space here. We'll figure all that out, and we'll try to get as much of these projects in the next couple of years as we possibly can.
Would anybody like to ask any questions?
Andy, do you want anything to offer? You?
All right, I don't think we have any questions at this time. We appreciate you coming on board. Look forward to getting a lot of these very important projects done for our community, so we appreciate your help in that regard. Thank you. All right, Joe. Is that all we have for the workshop here?
That's all I have for the workshop, but while we have a few minutes, Mayor, you and I talked a little bit about this in the office today, and I'll bring it up now just to get some direction and inform the rest of the commission with regard to the 1200 Center Avenue property. I did go out to seek an appraisal on that property, so that's going to be probably three or 4 weeks before I get that appraisal back. And in the meantime, I pulled the RFP that we did for the property that the city owned at 6th Street back a couple of years ago before we gave it to MARTA to try to sell. We solicited proposals for people who would come in and develop that property. We didn't get very many responses, I think maybe 2 at the time, and there weren't successful proposals to the city's satisfaction, so we turned it over to MARTA, and as you know now, that's under contract. So because that property was purchased with CRA money, we have to go out and seek an RFP for purchase and sale of that property and possible development. We have the ability, we don't have the ability to control what gets built there as a government agency because what it's zoned for it is, and it happens to be a PUD, but we have control over whether or not we want to sell it to an entity because we're the owners of the property. So when I met with the county last week with regard to extending the CRA and what it would entail to do that, and I sent you all an email on kind of what the structure is for that. The county staff seemed to focus a lot on the current county council having a lot of interest in affordable housing. Now, when they talk about affordable housing, they're not talking about Florida Housing Finance Corporation federal dollars. They're talking about housing that fits into, I think it's 130% of the median income. So I don't completely understand how I would solicit bids for that. I'll have to meet with Donna Butler from the county who oversees community services and get her information that one option, not the only option, but one of the options that we could put in the RFP is for a contractor to come in and build such units, apartments, condos, townhomes, whatever, that would fit a classification of people in the city that would be your typical police, fire, school teacher, that demographic. Additionally, we would solicit in that same RFP options for other development that's within the existing PUD. Now, if somebody comes in with an option that's outside of the four corners of the current PUD, then we would have to amend the PUD, and that may just take a couple of months to do that, depending upon what somebody suggests to be the idea that they want to come to town with. So I wanted to mention that to you, and once we get the appraisal back, I'll have a better idea what that cost could be. We can still choose to incentivize it through the CRA, and that'll be an option. You know, we'll get together and discuss that RFP before it goes out on the street, get your input and see where you want to go with it.
So Joe, when you brought this up a couple weeks ago, there was discussion about that if we had to amend the PUD, that we may have to get consent from the adjoining property owners. Did you find the answer to that?
I didn't go any further with that. I'll check with Scott.
I spoke with Scott that night, and Scott said that no, we don't have to
Yeah,
get there.
I didn't think we did. We had to when they had an option on the property, but because there's no longer an option, I don't think that
Okay.
we have the ability to amend the PD now because we're the sole owner with no option on it.
We should clarify that tonight when he comes at the commission meeting, just to
Okay.
make sure.
And have you had any contact from Fountainhead or Synergy Building since?
July? No.
I know you saw him at a Teacher of the Quarter or something.
I see him at the Teacher of the Quarter last month or so and had suggested that we get together to talk about options for parcels 3 and 4. And, you know, I was told that most of his travel has slowed down and he would be more readily available, but I really haven't heard from him with regard to anything to deal with the property. They're still trying to get the final CO, and we're waiting for that to finish up. And, you know, we're now coming into mid-March, and we're not there yet. They're close, but they're not there.
Perfect timing, by the way, Scott.
Yeah. But I haven't
We were
heard,
just talking about you. Yeah.
I haven't heard anything more from them with regard to doing anything on that property. So, Scott, the question came up with regards to the Fountainhead property and parcels 3 and 4, and if the city's, I'm in the process of getting appraisal on it and going out to do an RFP to see what we can get in because it's a CRA property, whether or not we need Fountainhead's consent or sign on for us to amend the PUD, because they no longer have an option.
Yeah, they no longer have an option. It's property that we own, and they have no right, the purchase options have expired. And Brian and I talked about it, that as the owner of the property, we can go in, have the right to request a rezoning. Now, I wouldn't do it as it relates to parcel 1.
Right.
Because they have an option to buy that still through the end of the CRA or the current expiration date, I think. But the other ones, Those properties are basically free and clear with the city. And we would need to be cautious about making changes that would impact their property, but I'm not aware of anything, a change that we would make to 3 or 4 that somehow what they have planned or developed contemplated a certain development, and we go in and change it, and that adversely impacts what they've done. I'm not aware of anything.
Right, okay.
These were all sort of isolated, standalone.
I mean, for the most part, a housing component and other commercial components are included in the PUD. So I think it's broad enough that we should be able to attract something without necessarily having to amend the PUD.
And how was your position on it last time we talked about it? We didn't really have any problems with 3 and 4, as long as we didn't do anything to try to get involved with option 1. Yeah.
And it's roughly, the 2 parcels, 3 and 4, are roughly 8 acres. So, you know, I don't remember how many units they were going to do under their affordable housing project. It was like 80?
80, I think, somewhere.
Somewhere around in the 80s. So adding another 2.5 acres to that might make them either bigger units at the same number or the same size units and maybe more. So somebody will have to come in and they'll figure out a design to see how it fits. But with all the apartment construction that's going on in the greater Daytona Beach area, I think it could be an attractive piece of property.
But your thought process too, just let me get this straight, is for rental apartments, right? Not for sale condos?
It could be anything from rental apartments to townhomes, where people get fee simple ownership of their unit and the ground below it. So we'll leave it open for either option to be there.
Yeah.
Now, if you do the townhome condo option, then there's got to be an HOA as opposed to an apartment complex that's under single ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So many apartments for rent right now, I mean, what do they consider affordable housing? How much a month, you think?
I don't remember,
1,500.
no, it wouldn't be that high, and that's something that I've got to meet with the county staff to get a full understanding of what they deem to be affordable housing for workforce people that's not part of Florida Housing Finance Corporation tax incentives.
When they build on LPGA now, so many of them, they're going to build more.
Yeah.
They like start out at like 2,000 a month.
Yeah, those are market rent. Yeah, those are,
1,700 or something.
yeah, they're up there. I think they're like 2,000.
1,000
Yeah,
people a day moving to Florida, man. That's-
yeah, they're very expensive.
So many people that get moving into them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another interesting thing I found in the report from the county is that they're interested as well in septic to sewer.
That's right.
But,
They did mention
we've
that.
talked about this for years of, we don't have enough continuous,
A lot of our
areas that only have septic.
Areas are not contiguous where we can go in and do a project, and, typically you want to go in and do a neighborhood. Ours are kind of onesie-twosies off the ends of our systems, and we can still look at that.
I'd like to look at where all the septics are, because this could tie in as well to the lobbyist. There's a lot of money at the state
I have
to
the
work
list.
with that.
Yeah.
But, one that I'm thinking of off the top of my head is the trailer park up there. I believe that's all on septic, across from Marina Grand.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if that's...
And that's currently in the current CRA, I believe, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it only on the east side?
No,
of
it's in the
Riverside?
CRA.
Okay.
It's in the CRA. But the other thing that I wanted to mention to you, and, we have properties that are now on the west side of Nova Road that's in the city's jurisdiction. And one of them is recently brought into the city by the Balboa family that wanted to develop that property, but there's no sewer, and septic wouldn't work for them. So we're looking into the option, and Senator Wright was even mentioning to us that there may be funds available that the state could help get a sewer line across Nova Road. The problem is it's Daytona Beach's service area, so Daytona Beach has to allow us to bring a sewer line into that area in order to service that.
So is that the same with Jersey J, the guy that I introduced you, or over there by Maryland?
Further off, north of Walker.
Yeah, he was talking about 3 lots on Maryland, I had him talk to Sean.
Yeah.
Same thing, it was like tying into the sewer.
There's only, it's a very expensive cost to get underneath Nova Road. So you have the initial line of getting the sewer line under Nova Road to a service area, but then we have to make sure that we have the rest of the infrastructure to get it from the east side of Nova Road back to the plant. So we have to have capacity in the lines and the lift stations to get it there. And believe it or not, that area where you've got 10th Street and Nova Road, the line doesn't come straight down 10th Street and go into the plant. It actually goes north and then east and then comes into the plant. It's not a straight run like you would think. We can certainly make it a straight run into the large lift station, but that's going to be a significant cost. So the first thing we need to do
The Balboas asked Daytona if they'd run sewer to it, and they said
they
no?
don't have anything in the area.
Okay.
So it's their.
Why would they prohibit us from doing it?
Because
They shouldn't,
it's
right?
their service area, and they set their bond rating based on future
Oh.
development.
Okay.
So the bond agency may say, no, you don't want to give up any of that service area, because at some point in the future, when you want to issue a bond for expansion, you'll need that new revenue to help pay that bond down. So that's why it's in their bond covenants. So we have to get Daytona's permission in order to step into that area.
Makes sense. Yeah, but I think that's a good focus for us as well, to see if we can do some of those, and I know that there's a lot of funds to help us out.
Yeah. So right now, we're just waiting on a response back from Daytona.
Okay.
Did you get it?
Something to add, Antoine?
No, I don't think they have a problem with one property. It's expanding it. Joe was talking about expanding the sewer service, and that might they have a problem. Right now, like we have with Ormond, we have with the city of Daytona also, the Walgreens and the 7-Eleven, they provide the water, we provide the sewer, and we place meters for our sewer service. That parcel should not be a problem, but if you're talking about expanding the sewer lines outside the one property, they might have an issue with it.
That's when they'll stop us.
They might. I don't know if they want. I don't think they're interested in servicing that area, because they will have to have a lot of infrastructure in place
And there's not
before they
enough,
can service.
there's not enough to pay for it.
Right, pay
Right,
for
right.
it. You have to put lift stations and stuff. That it costs a lot of money.
Well, would it make financial sense for us to run that operation, or is it a losing
If
ballgame?
we can do a three-party agreement where whatever funding Senator Wright may identify for us, or a lobbyist, plus
Right.
maybe a third of it coming from the city and a third of it coming from the developer, and we can tri-party the cost of that,
Then
in
it makes
exchange for
sense.
the city getting both the water and sewer fees plus the tax value that the
Right.
development would bring, over time, that would be beneficial to us.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything more to add to that?
I don't have anything else.
Yes, sir.
Joe, you sent us an email and said you're going to bring it up under your comments, but we got 15 minutes left during the workshop. You want to talk about bike washes now, or save us time at the end of the meeting?
We can do that. On Friday, the start of Bike Week, there were already, I sent you a couple of pictures that we don't have any rule in place of what these ladies can or cannot wear. I send them, they each get a letter. When they come in and get a bike wash permit, they get a letter that says, we would prefer that the ladies wear shorts on the bottom and a bikini top on top while they're out on the road, and then if they want to go down to their thongs or whatever they wear when they're off the road's frontage and out of public view, then that's fine. Well, on Friday, they were clearly outside of my courtesy request, and I can't enforce anything because we don't have a dress code that's enforceable. And in the past, we talked about eliminating bike washes or any washes, and the question always came up of, well, what about the Boy Scouts, or what about the Girl Scouts? Well, quite frankly, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts aren't doing any bike washes or car washes. So we've been doing a lot in the city to strive to make ourselves better, going up one rung of that ladder at a time. But what happens during these 2 weeks of Bike Week and Biketoberfest really scars us. We get complaints, and the appearance just makes us look like we are going backwards.
Yeah, it's one step up, two steps back.
Yeah, so it would be my recommendation that we eliminate permitting bike washes during these events.
We have two of them right now, right? Chris's and Rudy's?
Right now, we have Chris's Lounge and what used to be.
What about,
What used to be Rudy's, yeah.
what
Yeah.
about up by Ace, are they not doing a bike wash?
I didn't see one. Sometimes Porter's Place, which is no longer there, would do one. Crank and Chrome used to do one.
Speaking of which, it's going to be Fletcher's. That's amazing.
Yeah, Fletcher's.
Too bad they didn't catch
That's going to be, he runs a good organization. Yeah, and they have a huge following. I think that's going to be really good. Is Kevin helping him on anything over there?
No.
No? He's just doing it all himself?
They may get a grant, but they came in on their own. I met with, what's his name, Tom?
Bill,
Bill.
Bill?
thanks.
He's the owner.
Close.
Yeah, Bill Fletcher.
Close.
Close, yeah.
It's a common name.
Bill, Tom. Yeah.
And he was pretty enthusiastic
About the
about
free
getting
letters.
in there, and I was a lot more comfortable talking with him than many of those that attempted it in the past because of the success of what he already has operating.
Right.
So I think if anybody's going to make a go of that location, he'd be one of the more likely to make it successful.
Definitely. He runs a good organization over in Norman.
So there's nothing I can do about the bike wash this year, but we
But-
can certainly say we're not going to do it anymore from here on out.
But even if this body took no action, according to your letter, they're not getting a permit to do they violated your gentleman's agreement. They're not going to get a permit to do a bike
Well,
wash.
it wasn't really an agreement, it was a request. They didn't sign off on it to say, yes, I will comply. It was just a letter that I
Okay.
said, do this or you risk losing the opportunity.
I drove by there 10 minutes before our workshop, and same thing is going on. Some of the signs were vulgar.
Right.
Yeah.
and-
So they brought it on
Really?
themselves. I try
Yeah.
to, and keep in mind, these are not local people. This
Right.
is the business that hires a company that pays them a rent to use the land, and they bring in their own girls, and they wash these bikes, which I don't understand how throwing cold water on hot motorcycles good, but they do it.
You actually think it has anything to do with washing the bikes?
It's a pretty good chance.
They do throw cold water on the bike.
Joe, isn't there a pretty good chance that without the bike wash, they'll rent it to somebody selling T-shirts or somebody else?
They could. They could, whatever they're getting, $100 a day or whatever it could possibly be. So it's twofold. They get a little rent for it, and then when the bikers are there getting the bikes washed and their entertainment, they go in and have a couple of drinks. So it is a little bit of commerce for them, but is that level of commerce worth the reputation that we're trying to improve?
Yeah, and I'm probably going to be the center here on it, just for the reason of it doesn't bother me. I don't ever really see it. If you go to the beach, you'll see girls nowadays wearing the same exact thing. It's not like it happens all year round. It's 1 week where it's almost accepted in the bike culture. I mean, it's anywhere and everywhere. I talked to my dad about it today, and I said, Dad, when I was a kid, were they dressing like that? Because I think about, my family and what if kids are seeing it? He said, yeah, that existed. It sometimes was even more than that. I never knew it. It never bothered me. It never. And I know what you're saying, Joe, and I get that whole argument. It's tough because I'm a family man. I don't want to call myself a prude, but I don't necessarily. If it was my business, I wouldn't have them out there doing that. But what I also look at too is the amount of people that are stopping in and then patronizing those places, and that's very important to these specific bars that are doing it, the two, because they rely on this money, and this gets them through a lot of the year is these events, and so it helps them in a way. And I'm probably going to be in the minority in thinking that, but I think I come at a lot of issues where I'm a live and let live type of guy. I'm more in the libertarian.
I don't think it has anything.
Prospect.
I don't think it has anything to do with your values or my values or the business's values. I think my concern is the reputation, the other the other 50 weeks of the year that people have comment. So I don't think you're being a prude. I don't think you're being one direction or the other. I think it's the comments that we hear afterward of, well, that's Holly Hill. You can
Well,
get away with doing that.
My concern is, let's go in the future, 12 months from now, it's Bike Week 2023. Pictona has a tournament hosting 3,000 people. What would you think if they had a bike wash on the slab right across the street here? What image are you trying to portray? I don't think you can have them both simultaneously. And that's just, you get one chance of a first impression. And if someone were to come to our community for the first time and drive past and read the signs that Mr. Forte emailed to us and see what was going on.
Isn't that some
can't
kind of
forget
code
that.
violation? Vulgarity?
Oh,
is not
no,
code vi-
yeah,
was
don't
around
even go
speech.
there. Don't get him
It was
started.
nothing vulgar about it. It's an
Don't-
interpretation and a matter of free speech.
Don't give Mr. Simpson, no, you don't want to go there.
So, I mean, it's up for discussion, but it's clearly,
We had a lot of those discussions.
if we had it 50 weeks out of the year, I'm going like Forte. If we had it 50 weeks out of the year and only had 2 weeks without it, it certainly would be detrimental to our reputation.
I just wanted to say, I have been on the bandwagon for several years to get rid of this, and I've been in his ear every year because I do hear complaints about it from people both during and after. But beside that, I really feel like much stronger now about the reputation thing, because back then it was about what are we trying to portray as a city. Well, now we're kind of rebranding ourselves, if you will. We've got Daytona rock climbing that's going to have kids coming in there doing that thing. We've got Pictona over here. We've got, the gymnasium. We've got Deanna's project that's going, all family oriented. And that's what I really love about this community. And what I don't love about this community is that we seem to be accepting of behavior that's going on down here. Listen, you give them a letter and warn them, and you still want to disregard and make signs that are totally inappropriate. I don't want in our city. And the fine people that live here, I'm sure they don't want to see those signs as they're running up and down their main road. And that's my biggest problem with it now, is the reputation of our city. And if they can't even follow simple requests, and they go way above and beyond what we asked them not to do, that's where I really have a problem. Because obviously they're not willing to work with us, so why should we want to extend and continue to try to work with them when they're not concerned about any of those issues? And we've tried to work with them, but it's just not working.
Well, do our neighboring cities allow it? I mean,
That's what I was just going to
I'm
ask. Do the
thinking
other
when you drive to the
Ormond,
Iron Horse,
Arizona-
the middle of Bike Week, I don't see girls washing bikes at the Iron Horse.
We do have an Ormond commissioner here.
I
Do you
know
allow
that-
these bike washes, Rob?
One vote to eliminate the permitting along A1A.
Come to the microphone, please. For the record, Rob Littleton, Ormond Beach.
Yes, I believe we still allow the permitting up the US 1 corridor for special events, but we did eliminate the permitting along A1A for bike washes. And there were free speech issues involved with that, because again, if the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, or some other type of organization holds a car wash, if you allow one, you have to allow the other.
Okay,
I think they're gonna.
thank you.
I don't ever see any
mean-
kids doing bike washes, car washes, any kind of washes anymore.
I've never seen one in Daytona that I'm aware of.
What, a
No,
bike
South
wash?
Daytona eliminated it. That I know. for
I'm just
Like-
just drive up and down US 1 in your mind. I don't think I see it anywhere.
To be
but I
honest with
see it.
you, I don't even notice them here. Like I did after the email. I looked today and they weren't doing it until one of them was doing it when I was on my way here The other one wasn't. But so Daytona doesn't have them at all?
South Daytona doesn't have it. I don't know about Daytona Beach.
What's the permit fee for one or the other? It's all the same?
They get a vendor's permit for the property, and they could have as many vendors as can logistically fit.
We got till October to figure it out.
Yeah. It's true.
Well,
it's a lot
I'm
easier-
definitely on board with eliminating it, whether it's now or October.
Eliminate all bike washes year-round.
Yeah, you would eliminate
Bike washes year-round.
bike washes. Yeah.
That's addresses any potential legal
Is
concerns.
there a difference between bike wash and car wash?
You would eliminate all washing, like bike washes,
Like I
car
said,
washes.
We haven't issued a permit to anyone to do a car wash, I think with the exception of, we had one of the kids groups do it at the YMCA.
UBIC did one just recently, not too long ago, within the last couple months.
They didn't get a permit for it.
Whoops. Maybe they didn't.
They didn't
I don't
charge
know.
for it either. It was free.
They never
Oh,
do
was
it.
it?
It's usually it's
They always do free
donations.
car washes.
Oh,
Yeah, because they just do it for
Yeah.
free and then we give them tips, donations.
that's cool.
I mean, the only thing I would tell you is, whatever decision you want to make as a legislative body, make it now for October. Don't wait until then, because it'll be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So while it's fresh in your mind, it doesn't have to be tonight, but somewhere in the recent future or the near future, you might want to decide if it's something you want to do or not do.
Okay.
I remember last time one of the times we tried to address this, and we got bogged down on trying to describe what could be worn and what could not be worn. And that was very difficult to try to describe. And if you just say, look, we're not doing bike washes, car washes along US 1, if there's a public safety issue, distraction issue, people are driving down there, that would make sense.
That
Maybe
wouldn't
ban
that wouldn't
Nova Road, too.
preclude UBIC from doing one if you just eliminated it on the US 1 corridor.
And I might do it on Nova Road. Those are your two high-traffic areas.
Mm.
And so if somebody wants to do a bike wash, they can do it on a side road or something like that.
All right. Well, is there anything further before we adjourn? We'll have a couple minutes before the city commission meeting. If there's nothing further, then this meeting is now adjourned.